Well, it wasn't pretty, but the TCU Horned Frogs are 4-3. They bounced back from an inexcusable loss against Houston at home with a victory on the road against Utah. Defense did an outstanding job. Offense had some struggles. We'll break it all down next year on Locked On Horned Frogs. It's your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right, Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day, our live post-game show. If you're still awake, congratulations. I saw somebody say, I think it was John Martin maybe, I'm really glad they won because I would be very angry if I stayed up this late and they lost this game. And yeah, I'm there with you, man. I mean, obviously I'm doing a job to a certain extent, so I'm here either way, but I totally get if you stayed up and you're expecting TCU. Honestly, at the end of the first half, start the second half, there was a moment there where I thought they might kind of cruise here. I didn't know what the final score was going to be. But they're up 10-0 at halftime. They left a lot of points on the board on offense in the red zone. We'll talk about that in a minute. The defense was playing outstanding ball. And in the second half, they get a 3-and-out to start. They get the ball. They once again kind of stall it in the red zone, but they get a field goal to go up 13-0. And it's like, all right, they might, put this away. And that didn't happen. The offense came up empty a few times. The defense finally gives up a long pass play. JT Broughton gets burned on a route by Money Parks, and Isaac Wilson hits him for a touchdown. And now it's 13-7. And then the defense just had to stand on their head for the rest of the game because the offense could not do anything in the second half. And there were some mistakes. There were some game management decisions that I didn't like. So I want to get to that in a minute. But I see Dylan Miller say something that I just want to point out here at the beginning. A win is a win. Yes, it is. I think with this football team at the moment, with the limitations they have, you take any kind of victory you can get. You go on the road, I get it. Isaac Wilson, that offense was super limited. They were even more limited than I expected going into this football game. I really thought they could have some success running the ball against the TCU defense because, just to be fair about it, pretty much everyone has this year, with the exception of that Stanford game. And this was the first time I saw Joe Blankenship say this at the beginning of the stream, really the first time since the Stanford game. I guess you could also throw Long Island in that the defense looked nasty. Like they looked like they had bad intentions. They were playing with confidence. They were playing physically. And yes, I believe part of that was early on in this game, especially in the first half and early in the second half, Isaac Wilson just could not hit on some open throws. The secondary was doing a good job making life tough on the Utah wide receivers and skill players. The defensive line and the linebackers were getting home. How about Devin Deal tonight? Cooper McDonald was out apparently with an injury, but Devin had a great game, only credited with 2 sacks, but it felt like he had more of an impact than that. So I think the biggest takeaway I have, there were a lot of mistakes and a lot of things that you're just like, you're scratching your head, you're pulling your hair out, and I'll get to some of that later on in the show. But I will say this team was at a crossroads, so to speak. Again, it feels like we've been there a lot. And I said all week, I was like, the only thing I've really come to expect from this TCU football team is I don't know what to expect. Week to week is a different thing. They go to Kansas and they have a gut check win on the road. By the way, they've only lost 1 road game this year, which is kind of crazy. They go to Kansas and they have a big win on the road where it was sort of like this. They kind of rallied. Offense played much better, but they rallied. They made some big plays when they had to. They get a victory. They come home against Houston. They lose. Coming off the bye week, though, I thought the effort and intensity was really, really good. And, yeah, that's the baseline that you want as a fan, as someone who's supporting this team. But still, I think it means something because I know a lot of people are out on Sonny Dykes and this coaching staff right now. I totally understand that. The players are still buying in. Now, there's still a lot of, I think, mental mistakes and things that need to be cleaned up. And I'm not sure it's going to get cleaned up. We're 7 games into the season. And at this point, it's kind of like, can this team win within their limitations? There's just some things they're not going to do super well. And there's some mistakes that they make repeatedly. But can they find a way to hang on and get a victory? They did that tonight. There were often, times in this ball game where they could have got discouraged, but they hung in there. They made the plays they had to, and especially on the defensive side of the ball. Another guy defensively, and I get it, he's somewhat of a matchup player. Marcel Brooks, he's a pass rusher, right? And maybe he just struggles in the run game. But my goodness, like he just pops on the field. He had a sack tonight. I'm not sure if they credited him with one. I guess I can look at the box score here. He had multiple times where he was pressuring Isaac Wilson. Again, it was in obvious passing situations. He was credited with a sack tonight. And maybe it's just as simple as you got to find a way to put teams in obvious passing downs. But, like, get this guy on the field. He makes plays. And this defense is just in dire need of athletes that can get the job done and make things happen. And an outstanding job all around. Mekhi Bernard is a good running back. He's averaging about 6 yards a carry on the season. TCU held him in check for the most part. I mean, he busted some big runs, but his final line was 13 carries for 55 yards, a long run of 20 yards. Isaac Wilson had some, plays in the zone read game, but they stood up and did a great job against the run and forced Utah into situations where they had to throw. And in the first half, they brought a lot of pressure. You could tell Andy Avalos, some of you might be wondering, like, where the heck has this been from a scheme perspective? Because tonight looked like a lot of the things that we were excited about going into the season, bringing guys from different angles, bringing a lot of pressures and blitzes. Caleb Larmzor, hello, man. He brought like a delayed blitz on a third down. Maybe it wasn't third down, but it was on that drive as Utah was trying to score before halftime. He got home, he made a play, made a really physical sack, which was outstanding. Abe Kamara once again brought the wood a few times. He got home occasionally on some blitzes, one time on a jet sweep where he just blew it up. And the defense looked really good all night long. Now, we can be honest about some of the shortcomings for Utah. That was a rough scene for them at home in a game where even with a backup QB, you thought they could do some things. But still, great job by them. I saw Richard Berry mention Bud Clark should have dropped that interception on 4th and 2 for better field position. I made a joke on Twitter during the game. I said, of course, the one turnover we force in this ball game would be a play where you cost yourself 40 yards in field position. Like, yeah, I get it. I'm not going to rag on Bud too much because he's trying to make a play. But if he knocks that down, he gives TCU the ball around midfield, and instead he picks it off, which, I mean, he made the play, right? Ultimately, he made it happen, but kind of an unfortunate turn of events there. Moving on to the offense. So only 3 points in the second half and a lot of points left on the board in the first half when they were able to move the ball through the air. I thought Josh Hoover looked rattled tonight. He was uncomfortable. There were plays where he was missing throws. I don't know what to make of this, but one thing that kind of bothers me, I know that they run a lot of run-pass option stuff and a lot of reading the coverage post-snap. Like, okay, if they're playing man or they're playing zone, or if they're playing this leverage, like we run this route. If they're doing something else, we run this route. But Josh blames his receivers a lot for miscommunication and for seemingly running the wrong route. It seemed like he was frustrated with Savion on a ball where he just threw it right to the Utah defender. And I guess he thought Savion was going to sit down on a stop route or a hook route. And instead he kept going up the field and he put the ball on that stop route, and the Utah defender just undercut it and almost took it to the house. And then the play to JP Richardson, they had a 3rd and 4 deep in their own territory after that Bud Clark interception, where if he hits JP on kind of a little post, like a short slant post pattern, then he runs in the end zone for a touchdown. I mean, maybe a safety catches him, but he takes that ball to the house. And instead he throws it behind him, and he's talking to JP after the play about what he's expecting him to do. But I'm like, at a certain point, you have to take some accountability for this. Now, maybe it is just receivers are not understanding or they're not on the same page. But we're in week 7. I feel like this happens way too much. And the blame always seems to be on the wideouts. Now, obviously, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but it's just not a great look to me. And I don't love seeing it. I didn't think he had a good night. Blake says the announcers couldn't stop saying how great he was playing. Honestly, I watched the game on mute. That's typically how I do things nowadays. Not because I don't like announcers, just because that's kind of how I go about it. But I didn't hear that. I would disagree with it. I thought he had a really rough game. I thought he played okay in the first half. But second half, Utah's kind of doing what they want. And you could tell they smelled blood in the water and they were coming after him. Some people are mentioning, like, does this feel like the Cheez-It Bowl? Yeah, it kind of felt like that. A little bit better on the offensive side of the ball, not as many turnovers, but a lot of stalled out drives, and Utah especially just looked very inept at times. Now, I do want to get to some positive things about the offense. Some of you have said this already. Savion Williams in this wildcat QB power situation where they keep Josh in the game. They put Savion at QB. Josh is at one side of the running back, and then the other running back is next to him. He was having all types of success running the football. He ended up with 72 yards rushing on 7 carries, had that huge first down on 4th and 1 where he just kept it and made a play. He's got really good vision. Like, you can tell it's more than just, straight line speed. And he's a big dude. And I've said for the last couple of years, I feel like they have to find a way to get him more involved in the short passing game, like the bubble screen stuff, because he's just got such a big frame, one, that he can fall forward for a few yards. And also, like, he's pretty shifty as well. And I see some people saying, like, moving him to running back. No, I think what they did tonight is where you want to live, which is this kind of QB power stuff out of the Wildcat formation. Now, the one concern I would have, first off, I'll give kudos to Kendall Browse for this. I had a lot of issues with the play calling tonight, but that was a new wrinkle. They've run it a few times in the first half of the season, but not nearly as much as they did tonight. And I talked all week about, like, okay, what are the things that you're going to bring to the table? What are the wrinkles that you're going to throw at Utah schematically that could throw them off? And it was pretty clear that Utah didn't have a great feel for what they were doing. Also, the offensive line did a nice job. They had that left side of the O-line often pulling and getting to the outside and getting some blocks. Trent Battle, and I'll get to him in a second on what he did at running back, but he got out there and made some blocks in the open field that were really impressive on that long run by Savion. I think it was Colton Deary that got out on the pull, and he blew up the defender who was trying to come on the edge and make a play. And then Battle just let up and got the linebacker that was coming across the formation and sprung Savion for about 15 more yards. So that's what you want to see. And I think they have to come back to that more. The Haas-Haney run package was not successful tonight. And I feel like we're at the point with that. You've shown it enough that unless you're going to start doing some different things off of it, allowing him to throw the football maybe, or some more misdirection in the run game, I'm just not sure how well it's going to work, because Utah was ready for it. I mean, they tried it on a 3rd and 2. That didn't work. It turned out to be 4th and 4. And then, they tried it earlier in the game too, and it wasn't successful either. I think they got a loss of 4 yards on like a first down on the first drive. Also offensively, I thought that first scripted drive was really good. They brought out the Savion run play. They had some, good passing concepts out there. Hoover had a great back foot throw on 3rd and 13 to J.P. Richardson, who made a nice catch. Had to go, full extension near the sidelines and reel in, and he did that. But then, of course, I mean, an unforced error, you get down to the 10-yard line, and you got 1st and goal, and Josh tries to pull it on his own read, which I like that idea. I mean, I've kind of complained and talked about his inability or unwillingness to use his legs at times, at least just to keep the defense honest and give them something else to think about. Well, he tries to pull it. And I saw Matt Jennings say this, friend of the show. He was like, nobody looks more uncomfortable at the mesh point than Josh. And yeah, he did. But he ends up fumbling. And so people are asking me about Trent Battle. Trent Battle was fantastic tonight. And I've been a fan of Trent for a while. I thought when he was in the game, and it's been in limited opportunities, but like they put him in the game in big situations in 2022 when they went on that great run. And he was really good at catching the ball in the backfield. He was good in pass protection. He was fantastic tonight. I mean, he was making moves, getting extra yardage in the run game. He was effective blocking both in the run game and the pass game. 8 carries for 45 yards. Here's what I'll say about the running back situation at this point. This team is challenged along the O-line. They're not a group that gets great push. That being said, at a certain point, I think the coaching staff has to assess and be honest with themselves and say, well, there's limitations here in the running game. There have now been multiple players, Jeremy Payne, Trent Battle. Savion Williams is a whole different thing because he's kind of coming at a different style and formation, but vision and elusiveness and ability to make people miss, ability to know when to get north and south, like those are all things that matter. And it just feels like Cam doesn't have a great sense for how to do that right now. There were a couple times tonight, I think it was on the second drive of the game after that blocked punt, where it looked like there was a crease between the guard and the tackle, and he just kind of tiptoed to the line of scrimmage and like ran right into the defender. Later on in the game, they tried to run kind of a similar thing that they do with Savion, where he fakes the pitch to one side and they're pulling linemen on a counter action and he's going to the other, and he just ran straight into the O lineman that was engaged with the D lineman. Like, get Trent Battle on the field more. That was my big takeaway from tonight. And I'd want to see more Jeremy Payne too, because I think he was effective as well. You got to do something to get this run game going, and maybe a combination of you can throw Savion out there at times. You can throw Trent Battle and Jeremy Payne out there, and you can still allow Cam Cook to be part of the rotation, but it just feels like there's guys that are making plays, and it's more than just change of pace back. It's more than just limited opportunities. There's a trend there that I think the coaching staff has to figure out. So that's what I would say about his impact tonight. And he was really effective on the offense. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk more about this game. TCU's 4-3 after a win on the road against Utah. Shout out to our friends at FanDuel. People giving them a hard time. And, I mean, yeah, they set the over-under at 50 tonight. Wasn't quite that. Or 49.5, excuse me. There ended up only being 20 points scored in this ball game. But TCU did cover the spread and win outright. They were 4.5-point dogs tonight on the road. At FanDuel, you can bet on any sport, really. NFL's in full swing, full slate in tomorrow's games in that capacity. And then also, of course, college football rolling along as well. FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app, one $5 bet, get you $200 in bonus bets. If you're just joining us, TCU wins tonight by the final score of 13-7. Defense held on for dear life. Really can't say enough about this defense. I understand Isaac Wilson was struggling. I'm going to have to go back tomorrow because I'm going to get some sleep after this. But I'm going to go back tomorrow and see what Utah fans are thinking. I'm sure they're really distraught right now and maybe thinking that there needs to be a change at quarterback. But bottom line was the TCU defense made the plays that they had to make. And they looked much better. They did a much better job in the run game. They forced Utah into third and longs, forced them into uncomfortable situations, and they got off the field. Utah had multiple chances to go take the lead and basically milk the clock and win the ball game. And TCU was able to get stops, get them off the field on fourth down, and put the ball in the hands of their offense. I thought that was a gutsy call by Sonny Dykes on 4th and 1 to allow Savion to run, and he did a great job finding the sticks and getting it done. Blake asked me a great question that I want to throw out to everybody. How does this change your season outlook, if at all? Well, I didn't come away from tonight thinking this team fixed much of anything, if that makes sense. I'm not coming away from this win thinking that they're just going to go on some amazing run. I will say this. The Big 12 is a crazy league, and I wouldn't have thought this before the start of the year, but TCU, the way the schedule worked out, they're missing the two best teams in this conference, I think, which are BYU and Iowa State. They're also missing Colorado and Kansas State, who might be the two next best teams in the conference. And everybody else past that, it's kind of like throwing up your hands and flipping a coin each and every week. Arizona State went on the road to Cincinnati. They were coming off a nice win against Utah. They lose to Cincy. Texas Tech got bludgeoned by a winless Baylor team, winless in conference, at home with an opportunity to really give themselves a chance to go to the Big 12 title game. So I'm looking at the schedule. Tech at home next week. There's some challenges with that matchup. Tech can score. I think TCU's offense will have a much better chance moving the ball. They're going to have to be a lot more efficient. Josh Hoover's going to have to play better. But they get Tech at home. They get Oklahoma State and Arizona at home. They get Baylor on the road, Cincinnati on the road. I feel like there's a chance they could win those games individually. I don't think they're going to go 5-0, but I think they're going to have an opportunity in all those games, right? So my outlook as far as, okay, what are your goals, right? Big 12 championship, going to Arlington, that's kind of off the table now because of the losses you have. Getting to 6 wins, making a bowl game, I feel a lot better about that today after this victory. Here's what's giving me pause. They made big plays tonight, and they get credit for that. And I saw Jamie Plunkett saying that they could hear the team celebrating in the locker room from the media room. And that's a big deal because I feel like that means something. As much as the fan base and other people might be out on Sonny Dykes, and I'm not saying people are wrong for thinking that, because I came away with a lot of frustrations. The team is still buying in. They're still playing hard. They're still focused. They came off the bye week after a humiliating loss, and they made a point to win the game. And you know what? It was ugly, and there were some issues with it, but they got the job done. So they're still getting after it, and that is worth something. But the mistakes are still there. Some of the issues they have, I mean, maybe the defense can improve the rest of the year. I like some of the things I saw tonight. I would just say I'm going to have to see it against a team that can score. And we'll get a great look at that against Tech next week because Baron Morton is having a good season and Texas Tech has put up a lot of points with Zach Kitley as their OC. So we'll have to see how that plays out when they face some offenses with a pulse. But they're still struggling to run the ball. Now, hey, the Savion Williams thing, awesome. That adds a little something to your offense. Maybe Trent Battle and a combination of Trent Battle, Jeremy Payne, Cam Cook can be more effective moving forward. That's going to keep you on schedule. And then it's about Joshua making plays in the passing game. The mistakes are just still a killer, and I don't know how you eliminate that. And I'm not going to totally put that on the coaches because players have to make plays. Somebody said, how about Bud Clark stepping up today? Yeah, he did. He had a huge tackle on a screen pass on the second down of that last drive. He had that interception on the 4th and 2 play. The defense made plays when they had to. The fumble in the red zone, like you just can't have it. I get it. I mean, it's an unfortunate situation. You're trying to keep the ball in his own read. You get tangled up with your running back to the mesh point. The ball goes flying. But that can't happen. You block a punt, which is awesome. You make a play on special teams after getting 3 and out. That's great. That's a great start to the game on defense and special teams. And then you stall it in the red zone again. You get a kick blocked. So you had the ball near the end zone twice, and you come away with 0 points. You get the ball in the red zone again later on in the first quarter. You can't punch it in, so you kick a field goal up 3-0. And then in the second half, on your first drive, you get near the red zone, have to kick again. So it's 13-0 instead of 17-0, which the way the Utah defense was playing, that those 4 points made a huge difference. So those things are killers. The other thing that I was just baffled by tonight, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the negative because I do like they deserve credit for getting this victory. And I didn't predict them to win. Blake says they did what you said they had to do tonight, which was load the box. Yes, they were much more aggressive against the run game tonight. And Andy Avalos basically said, make plays through the air. Like you're going to have to beat us through the air. And they were able to get home on some blitzes. Pass rush was good. And then I think in the second half, it was more like coverage sacks. They had everybody covered. And Isaac Wilson was moving around, and they chased him down. And they made the plays they had to. But I want to talk about one sequence that just blew my mind tonight. So they get a stop around midfield. It's 13-7. Believe it was early in the fourth quarter. Let me pull up the play-by-play here so I know exactly what I'm talking about. But they're backed up at essentially the 1-yard line. And it's a big drive. You got to go make some plays. You got to score to basically ice this game away. If you can score, even a field goal would be big. But if you could somehow go down and get a touchdown, that would be massive. Well, they get out of jail there with a long pass play to Jack Besh. Then Savion busts a run, and suddenly they're in Utah territory. And they get another nice run, and it's 2nd and 2 around the 30. I think they were on the Utah 34-yard line. 2nd and 2 at the Utah 34-yard line. Great situation. They go 5 wide, which I understand the thought process there. You go 5 wide, you're going to take a shot down the field, right? Like that's kind of football 101. You got 2nd and short, take a shot down the field. If you don't get it, you still have 3rd and short to get the first down. They don't take a shot down the field, though. I'm not sure what the play call was. I'd have to watch the all 22 camera. But instead, they throw a contested slant to Eric McAllister. Now it's 3rd and 2. They take a timeout because they can't get the play call in time. So they have to burn a timeout and get set up. So now they take a timeout. It's 3rd and 2. They run out there on 3rd and 2. They put Haas Haney in the game. Everybody in the building knows they're going to run the ball. There's some miscommunication between him and Trent Battle, it seems like. So 2-yard loss. Now it's 4th and 4. They have to burn another timeout. You're down to 1 timeout. You have to have a plan as a coach. Like, it's 3rd and 2. You just took a timeout. You have to be thinking ahead. You have to know in your mind, okay, if it's 4th down, what's the down and distance that I'm going to be comfortable going for it on? If it's 4th and 2, if I'm comfortable going for it, what personnel package am I sending out there? Because if I'm sending Haas Haney out in the game, that means if it's 4th and 2, do I need to send Josh Hoover back out there and get in my base offense, right? If it's 4th and 3 or 4th and 4, do I decide to punt or kick a long field goal? You have to know these things. But they get surprised, I guess, by the fact they lose yardage. So it's 4th and 4. They have to burn another timeout. Now you've taken 2 timeouts. And so you send your offense out there on 4th and 4. And Josh does a very theatrical, hard count, trying to get Utah to draw off sides. And they take a penalty, a delay game penalty. And then they send the punt unit out there. If you're going to take the delay game penalty, why did you burn your 2nd timeout? It doesn't make any sense. And I understand everything's happening fast. It's Rice-Eccles Stadium. The crowd's going crazy because they're like, we played like crap tonight, but somehow we still have a chance to win this game if we can get off the field on this 3rd down or 4th down. I get it. It's a high-pressure situation, but that's the job. You have to be prepared for these instances to come up, and they weren't. And so they end up just really mismanaging that situation. It doesn't come out to hurt them at the end of the game, but it's just another example of man, these things hold you back. And those are killers. That being said, they overcame their limitations tonight. And I think that's really the key for TCU the rest of the season. There's some things that are probably not going to get fixed. That being said, I feel like the games on your schedule are winnable. So can you dig deep and find a way to win? Tonight, despite all the mistakes, despite the issues on offense in the second half, they made plays when they had to. They stuck together as a team. They fought their tails off, and they're coming back home 4-3. And now you regroup and you try to do it next week against a Tech team. It's going to be a completely different ball game probably, because it's most likely going to be more like a shootout, hopefully, if this offense can get back in gear. So that's the challenge now. You're able to answer the call once. Everybody, you had some time off. You had some time to collect your thoughts. You heard about how bad the team was all week. And you responded. And you brought your guts and you said, hey, we're going to lay it all out there. And you won the game. Now you have to do it again the next week. That's been the missing formula for the last couple of years for this program. They've had some turning point moments where it looks like maybe they figured it out, but they haven't been able to sustain it. Blake says, given what we saw tonight, what's an estimated floor and an estimated ceiling? I think the ceiling is 8-4. I think the floor is 5-7. And if I had to guess today, I'll say 7-5. That's what I'm thinking right now. So we'll see. You get a victory tonight. It was ugly. It was kind of Cheez-It Bowl Volume 2, but we don't apologize for wins on Locked On Horned Frogs. Thank you for rolling with me. I know it's late. Everybody get some sleep. We'll be back on Monday. Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day.